welcome everybody to this session on using your grant. You've got a delightful Kate Lovelace-Collins, who's a regional advisor in the Southwest, and I'm a regional advisor in the Northeast. I also cover East of England and Southeast at the moment. Both Kate and I are leads, which just means that we manage some of the team and do things like this lovely session today. So I hope you have some sunshine, and we'll kick things off. Onto the first slide, Kate. Lovely. So just to let you know, this session will be recorded and uploaded to the Parent Participation YouTube account. So if you don't want to be on the recording, please do switch off your camera. Now, we've got some time for questions and answers at the end, but please feel free to put questions in the chat, or if you want to ask your own question, then please do put your mute button off and speak away. We don't mind being interrupted if that helps you to clarify any of the points along the way. While you're not talking, please do keep yourself muted just to help us minimise background noises. And at the end of the session, we'll send you a link to a short feedback survey. So please do take a few minutes just to complete it. Your ideas are really important to us to help improve and develop how we can better support forums. So without further ado.
Yes, great. So thank you. So we're going to talk about the purpose of the Department for Education grant. We're going to talk about what you can use it for, what you can't use it for, some examples from parent carer forums, and as Sarah said, we're going to have some time for questions as well. I'm really excited that my slides are moving, because when I started it, they weren't moving. So the main and the overarching purpose of the DfE grant is it's there to support, develop, sustain and enhance parent carer participation in local areas. And it's there to enable the strategic participation and representation of parent carers with local, statutory and voluntary partners in service provision, development and improvement. And that second bullet point, I think, is quite a mouthful, isn't it? So really, the core of what that's meaning is that the grant is there to help you to work in partnership with the local authority, health and other voluntary and community groups as part of a team developing services and improving things. So some of the essentials about the grant, and many of you probably already be aware, is that forums need to be pan-disability. So what that means is they need to be open to parent carers of children and young people with any special educational needs and or disability, covering 0 to 25 years, and they need to be actively working to be fully representative of all communities, so including Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups and other underrepresented or seldom heard groups in your area, which can differ obviously depending on the area you're living in. And there's lots to think about in relation to that, and I think all forums are just on a continuous journey around that, because that's quite a challenge. Sarah, I have to admit that I can't see the slide numbers, so am I doing this one?
You are.
Yes. So your forums grant application, you should only use your grant for what's been approved in your grant application. If you need to change your spend during the year, which is really common and to be expected, you know, because things change and priorities change as you go along, you can go ahead as long as you're confident it meets the purpose and conditions of grant. We recommend that you check with your advisor about any changes ahead of making any payments or commitments, because there is a risk if you don't check that the spend won't be approved. So your sort of main document at the beginning of the year to know what you can spend on is your grant application. We're not worried, and it's not unusual if you need to adjust and spend on something else throughout the year, that's fine. But if you want to safeguard yourselves from having a spend that isn't going to be approved at the end of the year, just run it by your advisor and double check with them before you make any commitments.
Now, the delightful bit of what you can use the grant for. So it's okay to use the grant for any activity that supports collective parent carer participation in your local area. So this can include things like focus groups and conferences, surveys, as long as it's about the collective parent-carer participation, so not individual parent participation for services to their families. You can use it to build the forum's membership or increase reach and inclusivity. So that could be things, any sort of informal type events. It can include using social media ads. We've had all kinds of things. Some forums have run creative activities like coffee mornings, or literally creating something. So I think some people have used it for creating memory books of their child and or for themselves. So it's just anything that helps bring families together. You can use it for outreach activities to include parent carers from underrepresented communities. So that can include things like translated materials, videos, British Sign Language interpreter, captioning on videos, translators, those kind of things. And there's more about that in the Seldom Heard Toolkit. Okay, marvellous. So you can use it for engagement events, whether these are solely organised by the forum or if you're working with other organisations like Sendigas. You can use it for day-to-day running costs. So things like office, photocopying, stationery, printer cartridges, all that kind of stuff. And the day-to-day running costs can include admin, development workers, coordinators. There's quite a range out there. You can use it for accounting or auditing. So you can also use it for paying someone to keep financial records, do bank reconciliations, pay invoices. You can also use it for phone and broadband costs and insurance. Obviously, you can use it for parent carer out-of-pocket expenses such as travel, childcare, subsistence, which just means paying for somebody's lunch if they're out at a meeting sort of during the day and it covers lunchtime or an evening. It's okay to use it on that. Okay, so you can also use it for parent care remuneration, and by that we mean paying for parent representatives to attend strategic meetings. You can use it for website development and hosting, information, marketing, promotion, branding, publicity, and other resources. You can use it for one-off commissioned work on a forum's website or on a consultation or training. So I know that some forums use it to pay people to do conference reports because it's not their greatest skill, or to do a write-up of survey feedback from families. If they want to present something to the local authority, you can pay people to do that for you if it's not your forte. You can use it for forum capacity building and team building activities. So, and you can use it to pay for training that helps build the forum's governance, or training for the steering group members, as well as things like away days. And you can also use it for paying associates, consultants, or trainers, and that can be for helping the forum to plan their activities for the year, or develop a longer term plan, look at specific issues that are coming up, help you build the relationship with the LA, or carry out some training. Over to you, Kate.
Thank you. So the things that you can't use the grant for are to fund activities which are the responsibility of the local authority or other body. That doesn't mean that there aren't some forums that have funding from other places and do other things, but the grant can't be used to perform a statutory sort of responsibility. You can't use it to purchase alcohol or to pay for parking fines or other fines. It can't be used to pay for parent carers' involvement in shaping individual care packages for their own children, although that is something that there should be participation around that in the local area, of course, and you might feed in around how local authorities or health enable parents to do that, but you wouldn't support and shape the individual care packages with the families with the DfE grant. So to develop forums which pursue the resolution of individual parent care problems or concerns regarding their own child, it has to be a body of information, you know, around a particular topic or issue. It can't be used to fund a forum that only concentrates on a limited number of conditions, because you need to ensure that you're as pan-disability as you possibly can be and as representative as you can be. It can't be used to only focus on one service, such as short breaks or preparing for adulthood. Although you may prioritise one of these areas if that's core and coming in from your membership, that those are priority issues to your families. You can't fund support groups or advocacy. I'll just say, though, that a lot of forums will use the grant to visit support groups. They may even run a support group, but you can't fund another support group or use it directly for advocacy. And with the advocacy point, advocacy is around supporting people individually to have their individual voices heard. So it relates to the point earlier about individual packages. Of course, it doesn't mean that you can't pick up the phone to parents, that you can't signpost. And we know that the reason that a lot of forums get so much good information about parent carers' experience is very much because they're talking to parents and parents trust them. So it can't be used to fund political, religious, campaigning or lobbying activities. The grant can't be used to pay for training in relation to impairment-specific issues. Again, there are times when it can. So that's sort of a blanket bullet point, but we do approve some grant applications that might have autism or other impairment specific training. It's all about what the outcomes you're looking for are. So if you're looking to reach a group that isn't normally heard, if you're looking to you're working on a specific service improvement and you're trying to get more people in to find out, and they want that training, and that's how you're going to get people in. There's lots of reasons why that may be okay, but as a general blanket thing, it's not something that forums would provide necessarily all the time through the DfE grant. It can't be used to fund training for staff in a host organisation unless this has been agreed with the advisor prior to the training taking place. It can't be used to fund any other local groups or to be gifted to any other group. And it can't be used to fund any gifts to individuals that are above the value of £25. I think we'd very much recognise that saying thank you to people and doing things like having a thank you meal for volunteers and for people working with the forum to say thank you. You know, we know that's an important part, and we know recognition is an important part. So if you want to talk to us about anything around that, we're always keen to try and approve. So to fund fun events that do not have the aim of increasing parent carers' knowledge of the forum, widening reach, identifying parents' experiences or attracting new members. So I was going to talk about just some examples of these were recently on our website and in the news of Contact, so you may have seen them, but that's Blackburn with Darwin there, doing their Disability Information Day in their area, which brought together children and adults with local providers, such as the NHS and other voluntary services. I'm not sure if you guys are on the call or not, but the event helped the forum meet parent carers, increase their membership, promote their role and build relationships with local partners. And we know lots of forums do things like this to really reach out, build relationships across their area. And it can be quite an important activity that they do, especially when sometimes you'll get people coming up and signing up there and then. So recently, Westminster Parent Participation Group, Brighton Parent Carers Council and Swindon Send Family Voice, they came together to share how they reach underrepresented communities in their area. And you can watch them chatting about that on our YouTube channel. Some of them managed to get additional funding, so it wasn't all about the DfE grant. Some of them were some of the examples were using the DfE grant. So that's worth a watch if you get a chance. And Send Alliance in Cumbria, they've created some great videos to try and help them with their recruitment and their induction and welcoming and supporting their volunteers. So again, that example is fully available on our website and in our news. Anything around costs around creating induction packs or supporting new people to come on board, supporting recruitment for the forum are obviously absolutely crucial and definitely something you can use a DfE grant for.
And another example is from Plymouth, and they responded to the pandemic by changing their planned SENT conference to a week of online activities. They brought in high-profile speakers like parent carer Carrie Grant and Luke Jackson, and that helped them to reach 400 new families, and it also helped them recruit new parent carer reps. And then they also organised a panel with councillors, MPs and professional and parent carers, which resulted in 5 new working groups being formed to address different issues parents had highlighted. And this included projects like working with Plymouth University to carry out audits of local parks and disability play equipment and shopping areas, and additional services that are available for families of disabled children. Quite a mouthful. Is it working? Keep pressing the button, Kate.
Sometimes it just won't respond to the pressing of the button. Oh, here we go.
Making it work too hard. And Stockton Parent Carer Forum, they invest time in building up relationships with parent carers they're in touch with, so they get to know them and build up trust. And I've seen some of their events, and they're the ones who have they have early morning, I think they call them breakfast meetings, so post drop off or after their children have been picked up by transport, they can go to the office where the forum are, and they'll lay on breakfast. Sometimes they put on craft activities, and it just helps people get to know the parents on a kind of, you know, a much more relaxed and informal level. And then the forum identifying areas where they need support, they develop roles around this and advertise the roles. And they found that parents have been really keen to give something back and help other families as well as the forum. And they make sure that some of their activities are aimed at being able to help and support families, such as wellbeing packs, equipment, and they use other funding to help them to do that.
So we've got some useful links here before we go on and ask for some questions. All the information about the grant is on that grants and monitoring page of the website. The key documents, if you're looking out for what can I spend it on, what can't I spend it on, it's sort of page 13 and 14, I think, of the Managing Your Grant document, which the link is there for. The grant application guidance is quite good because it lists the budget categories with examples of what could be included in those categories. And also on that main page of the grants monitoring website, if you look in the application section of that big page, there are 3 grant applications on there that we've approved and anonymized, which are just examples of what other forums apply for. So you could click on and look at those. The grant monitoring guidance is obviously another key piece of guidance. And we've got the participation YouTube channel, and we were looking through it thinking what might be relevant. And I think perhaps the grants online learning session and the session on the role of the treasurer as well is on that page to take a look. So yeah, over to you. Has anybody got any questions?
So please do feel free to put questions in the chat, or if you just want to ask a question, you can unmute yourself and just ask away.
Oh.
Hi, it's Mary here. Hello.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, can I just ask, I'm probably new to this, so it's probably like an idiot question, so sorry if it is. But when can we pay for parents in order to support their attendance at events which we're organising? So, for example, you talked about the coffee morning that somebody was doing, Stockton Parent Carer Forum group were doing. We host coffee mornings at cafes round and about York, but we know that numbers are dwindling, probably to do with cost of living. Are we able to use our funding for that purpose? So in order to buy coffees and cake or at a cafe?
You can absolutely pay for coffee, tea and other refreshments cakes, donuts, bacon butties,
Okay.
whatever kind of works. It's a good extra draw, I think, for
I
families,
think it might
especially.
be. Yeah.
You know, and if you
So that-
wanted to pay for travel expenses, you could do that to take out the cost of their engagement, because presumably you're going to use those events to find out what the key issues are for families.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so
talking.
that's so in accordance with your expenses policy, if you've got one, and making the decision with the rest of the steering group that you're going to do that and how you're going to do that, and then just making sure that you have the claim and the receipts in line with the grant requirements.
Right.
But I mean, to be able to pay for some expenses for people to engage and to get a little something back from that, like, you know, a drink
Yeah.
and some nice biscuits and cakes is certainly absolutely fine.
That's brilliant. Thanks for that. Thank you.
There's a question online where Kelly thought you were going to ask about vouchers when inputting and feeding back. So it is okay to use vouchers as a reward for parents giving their time, whether it's through a survey or something. Obviously, whatever it is, you're going to have to make sure that you've got enough budget for it. And the other thing to recognise about vouchers is that the benefits agency and HMRC do count them as cash. If they're for things like supermarkets, you know, sort of goods and services, I think there is I'll have to check. But when I last looked, which probably was a couple of years ago, there was a get out of jail free card in that you could buy activities. So if you bought tickets to get into, you know, the local zoo or something like that, then that wouldn't count as cash. There was a difference in how Benefits Agency and HMRC viewed that, but it's quite a complex area, so it's definitely worth talking to your advisor, and I'll have to have a check online. Yes, just supermarket vouchers are counted as cash for the benefits agency. So you just need to make members aware of that and let them know that they're responsible for making sure that they inform the benefits agency if that's relevant to them.
Yeah, and for the purpose of the DfE grant, we treat, you know, vouchers in a similar way when you're doing your proofs. So recording it. Oh, so somebody talking. Yes, sorry, I didn't know if somebody was asking another question then, but so you need to record, don't you, who they went to, what they were for, and just that somebody's acknowledged that they've received them. So that's your good recording for your finances. But when you're spending on anything, there's the proofs guidance is on the main website. It's within that grant managing your grant document. So if you're ever not sure what you need to record when you're doing these things, you can look it up in there or just ask us.
Can I just apologise? That was me speaking.
Oh, no worries.
Don't worry.
No worries.
It's all right. Joe Biden just flew over my house.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
I live near Windsor, and he's going into Windsor, and all
That's
these
awesome.
chillax came up.
Oh,
I do
exciting.
have a question about grant monitoring.
Mm-hmm.
How often do we have to do it? I mean,
At the end,
what is the criteria behind it? Because I think we're on our 5th time now.
you have to
Might
do it
be
every
4th.
year. Yeah, you have to do it every year. So
everyone does it every year.
Everyone does it. Yeah, but it's different. So every year, so it's Department for Education grant. So every year they give it. If we're lucky, we don't know, you know, in the future. But so that at the end of March every year, you have to put in the monitoring form to account for how you spent that money across the year, because it's public money essentially. However, whether you need to provide your receipts and your proofs and everything may change each year, because to try and be a bit more pragmatic about what you've got to provide, not every forum has to provide all its receipts and proofs every year.
Okay,
so
we're about to do it for, I think it's the 4th time.
Your proofs?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just wondered what the criteria is behind it. Are we being watched for some reason? I've recently come into this, so it was done by someone else before. We're Harrow.
Okay.
And I don't know why. I mean, every time the chair of it says, why are we being asked again? And
Oh,
I
yeah,
just thought I'd ask the
it's a lot.
question.
Yeah, so there may be a specific reason why you're being asked, which we could look up and check, because
Okay.
it'll be a number of things. So one is random, so we do some randomly, but some are done if there's been issues with the monitoring before, or we need to check something out. So I wonder if something might have been raised before and we just needed to check it. So that could be another reason. And I think we also do it the first year a forum has a grant. So if you've got new bank details or something like that, that might be another reason. So there are quite specific reasons. So we could check that out.
If someone could please, I mean, we did have our grant held by Contact.
Yeah.
And
Was that
then
last year?
No, I think that was about 3 years ago.
Okay.
And then it went to Harrow Carers. And it just seems ever since it moved over, from what I'm being told, every year we've had to provide all the proof and everything else. And it might, you know, I'm sure there's a perfectly valid reason, but as their treasurer now, I'd kind of like to understand it, because I'm going to spend Wednesday evening doing monitoring.
Yeah. No, definitely we can help you understand that. I don't know off the top of my head, but we can find out. We'll get back to that. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Thanks very much.
Oh, there's something. Can we use funds to run a fun event and at the same time gather views?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, Lorraine, you can have the slides. Yeah, with these fun events, it is about thinking about your role and your reputation at the same time as well, because you don't want to be thought of as in your community as essentially a provider. You want people to really know your role. So if you're doing a fun event, I just recommend really sharing your role with people and doing it, making sure that you've got a survey and you've got membership forms there, because if you're using the DfE grant for a fun activity, we need to see that you've tried to increase your membership, and hopefully you have, and that you've perhaps got some views or built some relationships. Maybe you've attracted families that you wouldn't have done so otherwise. On the grant application under events, should we just put in costs, or should it include remuneration for the reps who attend and all the preparation required?
So for events, we would normally expect that to cover things like the venue, refreshments, promotion, but any time that's remuneration or paying staff to run the event and be at the event, we would normally expect that to be under staffing. Does that help, Hosan?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Sarah. I was just a bit confused because I was looking at it and thinking, for us, we ran a parent engagement workshop jointly with the LA. So they actually covered the hiring of the venue and the refreshments and, you know, stationery and things like that. And from our side, it actually meant that, you know, we didn't actually spend very much there, but we actually spent a lot more in terms of we had quite a few reps there, because we ended up jointly facilitating the event, which we we didn't anticipate doing. So I just wasn't, I wanted to capture that cost, because it's quite important for us to know how much it costs to do something like this. It was the first time, so we knew it would be more expensive, but it took, it was a lot more. So I just wanted to make sure that we were, when we come with 0 on events, it's highlighted elsewhere.
Costs for people's time to run activities or develop the forum or do admin, that comes under the staffing budget. But if it's cost for paying people for their time to be at a strategic meeting, then that would come under remuneration.
So does that mean that if you were if we were planning, because we were involved a lot in planning what the workshop would look like to make it as engaging and have a two-way dialogue, because the Inclusion Summit wasn't that. So we worked really hard to kind of practically telling them, suggesting, recommending what they should do. So does that go in staffing or does that go in remuneration?
That would normally come and, well, it's a bit of a moot point, isn't it? Because if it's you're asking people to produce an event that the LA are running, then I'd kind of think that probably more came under remuneration. But if it's like a forum event that you're putting on, then it's probably going to come under staffing. It's a nuance, really.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's probably confusing, but I hope that helps a bit anyway. But feel free to give me a call.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you, Sarah.
All right. Somebody asked a question about, do you offer help for how we manage monitoring? Yes, if you want to get in touch with your advisor, any one of us would be more than happy to help with help you complete the monitoring, or how you manage it through the year, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah. So I think our level of support is that we can't necessarily do it for you and help like manage it all in the spreadsheet and everything, but we would certainly come onto a virtual chat and get the form up together and do it together, and try and support in that way, and help you with completing the form and what you need to put in and everything. And don't forget that with these processes, if we looked at it and thought, oh, we can't approve that, we need more information, we don't come back and say this is not approved. We come back and say, oh, we need a bit more information on this, that, or the other, so it's not to worry about clicking submit and just sending it in to us if you're, because we'll just come back and ask questions if we need to.
Further to my question that I put in the chat, sorry, hi, would you recommend kind of, in regards to monitoring, I know it's done every year, but if we're trying to kind of figure it out ourselves because it's being done by others at the moment, would you say it's best to kind of keep on top of it on like a monthly, quarterly, like what's the recommendation?
I would expect, I'm probably going to say the same as you, Sarah, but I would expect if you're a steering group and somebody else is managing the finances for you, that every time you have a committee meeting, there's some sort of update on the finances. Is that what you were going to say, Sarah?
Yeah, I was just going to say it just helps to kind of keep all the information about the event. So if you've gathered feedback from the event, if you've any activity that you do in a month, just collate that sort of information so you've got a record of how many people turned up, what the feedback was, if you kind of got any outcomes from it, there was any major change in a service as a result of what parents said. Those are the good things to record, so that at the end of the year you can just go through and remind yourself of all the brilliant things you've done, put into your monitoring. You have to blow your own trumpet and remember all the fabulous things that you've done.
Definitely.
We've got another question. I'm not sure I'm quite understanding it. Staffing would be employed people remuneration. Well, staffing is just to say, staffing doesn't necessarily mean that the person.
Hello, sorry, that's not a question. That was answering someone's comment. So staffing would be employed, and people that are representing the group would be remuneration, from my experience. And yes, I'd strongly suggest if you're coming new to it, that you do it monthly to keep track of your expenses and things.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you.
Gosh, there's a question here to everyone. For someone that was starting out, what advice would you give them? So I think if you can put your answers to that question in the chat, oh my word,
Yeah.
How long's a piece of string?
Well, I think that's nice to hear from other forums, actually.
Yes, top tips, put them in.
I've got a slide somewhere from a different presentation where we asked that question. I'll have to find it. But in terms of actually what you can spend the grant on, if I was just starting out, I'd just look at those slides that say what you can and can't spend it on, and I'd look at the categories for grant spend, which are like events, remuneration, staffing, expenses. I'd look at those to start me off if I was just starting out. That's a really
Oh,
good one from Kelly there.
yes, good advice.
So that was budget carefully and keep it under review. Keep your area rep up to date with changes. Yeah, that's a good tip. And I kind of think about it, when it all starts to feel a bit complicated, I kind of think about it like this. There's the engagement, and then there's the work to make the changes happen to services. As a forum, you want to be doing both of those things as best you can. And the DfE grant will usually cover costs that support both those things. And when we're looking at approvals, we're looking for, have they reached out, increased their membership, engaged with parents to get their experiences? And then we're looking at, and have they worked with the local authority and health and other organisations to try and make those changes? Yeah, definitely don't wait till the end of the year. Keep reviewing your finances, especially throughout the year, so it's not a big job at the end of the year.
Kelly's put a comment about they use an egg timer as a visual.
Yeah, very good. And yes, definitely don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. You know, chat with other forums, and definitely come to us. We'll help.
Yeah, don't be afraid to come and talk to your advisor or other forums. Other forums are great for sharing their experiences. So do use your regional network Facebook groups and the national network of parent carer forums, closed Facebook group. Great ways of getting top tips.
Yeah, I would definitely say, if you're asking something specific about what's approvable or what's not in the spend for the DfE grant, definitely check with your advisor though, because it's changed over the years what the grant can and can't be used on. So a forum might have had an experience from during the pandemic where something was okay, or that isn't now. It's more likely that it will be okay now than it was back then, because it's the use of the grant and how we approved evolved over the years, as it should. But yeah, I would just say, if you've got a very specific question about how to use the grant, check with us, so that you make sure you sort of safeguarded yourself to ensure that you get that approval of the spend. Is there any more questions?
I think that's all so far. Has anyone got any other burning question? Just remember, there's no such thing as a stupid question. I'm queen of those. So feel free to ask us anything. No?
Just a massive thank you to everybody that's come. Please look out for a short survey link via your email, because that's the feedback survey, and we definitely need to know what to do next and what we can improve on. So please do complete that. The recording of this session and presentation slides will be on the Parent Participation Resources page of our website. And an email confirming this will be sent to you once this is available. If you want to talk anything through, please do get in touch with your advisor, or if you're unsure who that is, get in touch with Sarah or I, no problem at all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. We'll now just close the session. Thank you.